Yes, so we have our final Western region submitted presentation, and this is coming from Portland via Hawaii or Hawaii via Portland. I'm not sure which way, but I'm sure they'll tell us. And so we have Nicole Lee, Kamakahiolani, I'm sorry, Allison, and Constance James, and Mandilyn Suzuki.
Thank you so much for being so flexible with us. Sorry we couldn't present yesterday. I was feeling a little under the weather, so we appreciate you being here with us. Day 3, here we go. So I'm Mandy.
I'm CJ. I think you just shot. I'm definitely not relevant here, but I am also that.
Yes. Yes, my credentials, my initial credentials and training is actually in physical therapy, taking left turn. I'm getting my master's in public health now. And then our other colleague, this is one of the projects that she's focusing on too. So we want to include her in this and give her credit for that. So our project and research is called Piko to Piko. In Hawaii, Piko means your belly button, and that is the source of your humanness, right? And so Piko to Piko essentially is saying that we're connecting our Hawaii roots with Oregon. We're based in Portland, Beaverton area. And what we're doing is growing kalo on the continent. So. Okay. So we have very visually stunning slides, I guess I should say, less words. So before we start, I want to tell you all a story. The Kumulipo is actually our creation story in Hawaii. So it's a 2100 line chant telling the story of how Native Hawaiians came to be. I think we can go next. Do you have? Thank you. So the Earth Mother, her name is Papahanaumoku, and she, with Sky Father Wakea, created the firstborn child, Haloa. Unfortunately, it was a stillborn child, so they buried the child, and from the burial grounds is what grew the first Kalo. And so therefore, Kalo is considered the first child, the first lineage of Native Hawaiians. And this is, hello. So we have a picture of Kalo up front on our posters, and this is also a picture of the Kalo and the different parts of the plant. CJ will be talking a little bit about how we measure, how we grow, how we collect and harvest this plant. Every part of this plant can be used, from the stems to the leaves to the actual root part of the plant. So this is actually a project that we do with the youth. They made these. There's 2 ways of growing kalo in Hawaii. One is actually in the wetlands, so it's kind of like how you grow rice and things like that, and we call that a lo'i. The other way we grow kalo is on dry lands, and that's what we call mala. And so a little bit about the ancient Hawaiian diet. So almost 80% of it was carbs. And Native Hawaiians were out, they were farmers, they were fishers, they were really, really physically active. And so a heavy, heavy portion of their diet were carbohydrates. But these are complex carbs that sustain their energy, that were healthy carbohydrates. Only 12% were fat, and about 10% was their protein. Thank you. So some of the carbohydrates that they ate was kalo, which is taro, ulu, which is breadfruit, and uala, which is sweet potatoes. So with kalo, actually, one of the things that they make is poi. I'm sure you all have heard about poi. How poi is made is the root of the kalo gets harvested, it gets cleaned, they steam it, and then they'll pound it. When it's first pounded, it's actually called pa'i'ai, and it's a really thick consistency. And so to make poi, you actually add water to that to get the consistency that you want. Some Native Hawaiians like their poi sour, and so what the water is doing is it's introducing bacteria. The more sour you want your poi, the longer you leave it out, essentially. And then these are the types of fat and protein that Native Hawaiians had in their diet. So coconut was a form of fats, and then fish was protein. pineapples actually aren't indigenous to Hawaii. That's actually a thing we always like to say. This is actually a diet you would see now in Hawaii. And so this actually is what we call a plate lunch. This is not indicative of ancient Hawaiian diets at all. It's actually a culmination of the plantation life that was happening. So during plantation life, a lot of Asian Americans immigrated to Hawaii. If you look at this plate here, the rice, of course, comes from Asian culture. We have poke, which is fish, the pois up in the left-hand corner. In the middle, we call it lomi salmon, which is tomato, salmon, and onions. But this is actually not ancient Hawaiian diet. So, and so how that relates, so diaspora is when we're migrating, right? And so with Native Hawaiians, because of the cost of living in Hawaii or forced relocation, military job opportunities, a lot of Native Hawaiians actually are not living on the islands anymore. A lot of them have relocated to different states here in the US continent. And so one of them are Nevada. Actually, we have one of the highest rates of Native Hawaiians here in Nevada. The ninth island is what they actually call it, yes. California is another one, Washington, and then of course, Oregon, where we are. And so our project is with the increasing number of Native Hawaiians that are relocating to different states in the US continent, what we were hoping to do is to develop a community academic hui, which is a partnership that aims to understand how growing Kalo on the continent would promote health, mental well-being, community development, educational opportunities, and food sovereignty.
Oh yeah. Okay. So what I do, my position at Kalo is I am the food justice coordinator, and I manage our mala Kalo. So I manage our taro garden, and there is a study that we are conducting. Taking all of the volunteers who have volunteered multiple times over the course of 6 months and interviewing them about their, there will be interviews conducted by a doctor from Pacific University, that will give us results about their mental health and how their work with a traditional, culturally specific plant from the very beginning of the plant's life to harvest, how that affects their mental health. I coordinate the volunteers. I keep an eye, I basically babysit the mala Kalo and make sure the plant is healthy. And even though I am not the one collecting the data, I'm providing the data of the volunteers. I myself have already noticed a lot of beautiful things while coordinating these volunteering days in the mala Kalo. A lot of them, the first one is major. It's the cultural enrichment through education. So when we start our gardening days at the mala Kalo, we have traditional opening protocol procedures that involve welcoming the sun, asking permission to break ground, and we have such a variety in age of our volunteers. So seeing the elders chant and lead and really bring in the sun and start our gardening off with good spirit, good mana, and good community power is just a really beautiful thing to see. And people who are Hawaiian, but they've lived most of their lives in the continent might not have been exposed to that. And so they're sitting there watching their elders, their aunties, chant something that their ancestors chanted. And I can't possibly see that not contributing to positive mental health. Learning Hawaiian terms related to the mala Kalo. I guess I can, wow. This is just more of us working on the mala. It's located on the Oregon Food Bank Unity Farm. Unity Farm has a program encouraging and uplifting and providing funding for aspiring farmers of color. So they welcomed us. We have a mala on their farm, and being able to mingle with some farmers from Cote d'Ivoire, from Mexico, from Philippines is really incredible. It's a really beautiful incubator. Going back to other benefits I've noticed from the cultural enrichment through working on the Mala Kalo, learning traditional gardening methods. So though we are working on Oregon land, we are using some traditional Hawaiian methods. One of my favorites, and we harvested our Mala Kalo recently, one of my favorites is using biometrics. So ancient Hawaiians, while they were measuring their crop yields, were using their body parts. You know, we didn't have scales, we didn't have, you know, and this is, you know, different, lots of ancient cultures use these similar techniques, but just learning how to measure certain leaf sizes with your hand. We have, you know, 500 of this size, we call it pia, is the smallest leaf size, hand size. You know, but we have 800 of, you know, the medium sized leaves, or we have leaves that are this size, you know, and just watching the elders and the youth, our keiki, which is kid in Hawaiian, watching them interact and learn and share knowledge is truly beautiful. A social engagement, which I was just touching on, intergenerational interactions, intersectional cultural interactions. While we're harvesting kalo, our neighbors on Unity Farm are harvesting their white eggplant or their cilantro. So there's lots of like interaction and intermingling and intersections among cultures, which is a personal goal of mine and not necessarily something that I've been tasked with as food justice coordinator, but something that I value, being a Black woman working for a Hawaiian organization. And another cultural enrichment is just organic food. We get like delicious organic food that we grow, and it goes to our food banks. The volunteers will go home with a stack of leaves at the end of the day. Lau is what we call leaves. And the ha is used as well. The actual root, the corm, takes 9 months to mature, so that doesn't go home as frequently, but the leaves and the lau and the ha regrow continuously throughout a gardening season. So we just continue to harvest. We've harvested many, many pounds from this mala. It encourages health, like in general, just people who may have grown up seeing lau lau, which is a popular traditional Hawaiian dish, but have never seen where it comes from, are now encouraged to use it in their own homes. It's empowering to grow your own food. Let's see. At the end of a gardening shift, actually, and this is another cultural thing that we're learning, to protect our mala kalo, we're building a pohaku kuapa. Pohaku meaning rock or stone, and kuapa is like wall, barrier. So we're building that to protect against ground pests, which we're getting quite a lot of, and also just to really hone in on creating a culturally specific safe space for the Hawaiians who are in Oregon. Really cute. So actually, before we end, looking forward, we are working on a community cookbook, Mandy and I, and in the far future, CSA, land expansion, we've been in talks with folks in Corvallis about getting lots more acreage to grow more kalo on, senior outreach, partnering with some of the other farmers on Unity Farm to create food boxes and meal plans, and even bouquets for our seniors in our community. So mahalos go to Oregon Food Bank, Mahalo Youth Council, Pacific Climate Warriors, the SPDC, and Sonyun Park, who made our beautiful flyers, and the community who volunteered and helped us really see the beauty of cultivating a traditional vegetable in dry land. One other major thing that I thought was really beneficial was there are other youth councils and other Hawaiian civic clubs who exchange with us. They visit our mala. We exchange information about soil health, about traditional Hawaiian gardening techniques, and how to harvest different ways of harvesting the taro. So I really love that aspect too of the cultural exchange and learning from other groups living in the other states that have high populations of Hawaiians. So thank you.
Sorry. All right, well, we're getting set up for our road mapping session. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, CJ and Mandy, for your presentation. It's such an inspiring effort to learn about, and love seeing the photos that you showed throughout your presentation. Really excited to see the kind of evaluation, the stories that are shared about this impact. I'm curious to hear kind of a practical question, which might be a question for CJ, related to growing taro here relative to on the islands. Have you faced any kind of challenges in adapting practices? And do you foresee being able to inform those adaptations for other climates? So I'm envisioning like Nevada, right? Like, can they grow taro here? Yeah.
That's such a good question. I was hired in the role that I have. I'm not Hawaiian, but I was hired because I garden a lot in Oregon. So I know the earth there and the soil there and the soil health there. And so when I saw taro and was introduced to this plot that, to be honest, needed a little more love when I first stepped on it, I just, my instincts kicked in and I thought, okay, well, it definitely needs more water because it comes from a place with more water. But then and that helped a lot. But then as we come closer to harvest, I realized, okay, in Hawaii, this is one of the challenges, to directly answer your question. In Hawaii, these plants don't go to sleep. These taro don't. There's no resting period. They grow all year round. But in Oregon, it's way too cold for them to. They die off. So we have to enact some protective measures for our taro. And so that is a challenge. I'm very new in this position. I started this past summer, and our mala Kalo has been around for 3 years. And they've done some measures to protect them so that they can emerge the following year, but I'm just increasing those measures, enriching the soil more, because Kalo, because it takes so long to mature, it takes so much out of the soil. So we have to really, I'm learning as I'm going and really facing the challenges of this plant that is used to being somewhere completely different. So yeah, that is a challenge, just making sure that it doesn't die off during the cold season, that it is protected. We built a greenhouse to protect it. We have a crop cover to enrich the soil. We have a cover crop. And so we have, so that's how I've addressed some of the challenges. Also, just it has unique pest problems. So the cultural move of building our pohaku kuapa helps with those pest issues, as well as, enriching our community knowledge and our ancestral knowledge.
All right,
Yeah.
we have time for one more question real quick.
Thank you so much for the presentation. My name is Maylana Charles, and I'm with Oregon State University Extension in Multnomah County.
Hey, sis.
And Family Community Health, SNAP Ed, and I'm over the African Heritage Program. And within our programs, we have several different cultural work groups, including Polynesian and Micronation, which I think Native Hawaiian would go under. So I'm just wondering, totally selfishly, if you all are familiar with the cultural work groups that we have. And then the second question is, as far as your direct education, is it something that you all are creating, or is it a established curriculum?
So the first question is, in this position, I've become increasingly aware of different organizations and all over, because all over Oregon and Washington, of Polynesian, Melanesian, Micronesian groups, but I'm not specifically aware of y'all, so that needs to change. We do need to talk. The secondary question, yes, our board, our Kalo board of our Hawaiian Civic Club is creating an education program, and we do have, like, we have youth camps. I teach the youth camps gardening basics and the history of Kalo Taro, and for our teens and our kids, but the board is working on something a little more structured that everyone can attend, and just a cultural enrichment program. Yes.
And then just to add to that, so the community academic hui that we have partnered with, so we're actually partnered with Pacific right now, and they actually have a mala at their university. A lot of our board members are all over Oregon. So we have one in Eugene, one in Corvallis. Reaching out to these different universities in Oregon to start that partnership is something that we're looking into as well. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Okay, I'm excited to be back up here for one more road mapping session. So we are going to move into the other room in a minute, but because we're all sitting here, and I think we can pull it up and maybe, can you blow it up, do the little plus a few times? I wanted to show you kind of the collection of our thoughts and ideas yesterday, and the way in which our leadership team has kind of broken them into 4 categories. And then I want to largely check this with you, because we could have 3, we could have 5, we could do this differently. And so really open to the group's thoughts about how the steering committee has grouped them. So just to kind of be clear about what steps moving forward, once we decide the working groups, we'll break into the other room, and everyone is more than welcome to serve in more than one, but we'll have to select one to start conversations with. So maybe looking at the one that you're most passionate about, what we'll be doing then is having those groups of people sit down and think about a 1 to 2 sentence overview of kind of what that working group is hoping to accomplish. A contact person that would like to volunteer to serve on the steering committee. The steering committee is kind of the hub, and the work groups are the spokes. So if you are the lead or co-lead of a working group, you would also report to the steering committee and serve on the main steering committee. Does that make sense? The hub and spoke model, there's like one core. Yeah, it's like a wheel, right? And so people are welcome to be on 1 or more working groups. People are welcome to lead or co-lead a working group and thus serve on the steering committee. And again, we don't have to have 4 groups. This is just the kind of natural fits that we saw, but we'd like you to take a look and see your thoughts. There's a lot of people that aren't here today that had to go home early that want to serve on a working group. So there will be more people joining these groups. There's also people that weren't here at the conference that are really interested in this work. And so after we as a group collectively think we have our working groups pretty well together, there will be a follow-up to this conference from the conference planning committee that describes the working groups, shares leader names, shares dates and times that that working group is going to have their first meeting, which is something we'd also like us to kind of figure out today. And then other people will join in that aren't here today. So I'm going to just, if you can't see it real well, I'm going to overview the groups really quickly. I put everything that was voted on yesterday into a working group. Some things didn't get votes because we combined them with other things, but I still put the verbiage on the sheet so we didn't lose the original context of the idea. Working groups can also do things that are not up here. These things I would expect would change and move a little bit based on what the group believes is most important. I feel like I'm out of breath, so. All right, breathing. So group 1. This is one where we put together professional development, training, and resources topics. We talked a little bit yesterday about some things that were more programmatic and some things that were more professional development. And often we were lumping them into, ooh, that sounds like professional development. But really, once we looked at the data, kind of a separate theme emerged that was more program development and more professional development. So we divided all of those lumped things that we kept saying professional development into one group for professional development and one group for program development. So the first one, professional development training and resources, this is the things where we're educating ourselves and other people about the intersection between nutrition and mental health. And we're also educating others outside of our organizations, such as policymakers with that advocacy toolkit. Group 2, data evaluation and common measures. This was all of the conversations about looking at current tools for measuring this work, as well as finding measures that make sense moving forward. So everything in that pot got put into group 2. Group 3 was that research idea, and that was kind of the core primary research idea that got discussed yesterday. And group 4 was program development, which is where we talked, this one, you guys could very easily argue the SWOT one. I thought that kind of sounded a little bit more like looking at current programming and organizing it than professional development, but someone yesterday argued it as professional development. I don't remember who it was, but I'm happy to consider moving that one. But I thought it sounded a little bit more like looking at what programs exist. And so I put it under program development. And then identifying and compiling everyday practices to promote mental health, et cetera, et cetera. And then things that could be layered into another curriculum seemed clearly program development. Food sovereignty for individuals to improve substance use, treatment, and recovery also seemed like a program development idea, but again, argue me otherwise, I'm happy to move it. And then utilizing existing research to create a specific program. So those all seemed program-esque. That's where we put them. Who would like to say, let's move them? Anybody? I mean, because this is collective work. I was just trying to capture everyone's ideas. The steering committee's looked at it, but other thoughts. Grace has a Padlet with this information in it, so you can look at it on your computer or device if you'd like to scan. Gosh, this Padlet, I gotta start using it from here on out. One person asked, does it make sense to have a separate group for data evaluation and common measures, or should that not be a separate group because it might be integrated into the other areas? Does anybody have thoughts on that?
First, I just want to say kudos to organizing all of our chaotic conversation from yesterday. I think you did a great job in organizing it, is my opinion. As far as your question about the measured development, my recollection of that sentiment was that these would be measures that would be agnostic to whatever program that they're associated with, whatever program we're trying to evaluate. So I would worry by kind of lumping it together with program development, we lose that spirit that they would be universally usable.
Thanks, Cassandra. Other thoughts? I see a couple head noddings. Okay. In the back?
Just agreeing that I like it as its own area. Our table yesterday talked about, I think almost establishing like a baseline, is there a way we can measure even our current programming's impact on mental well-being and go from there?
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so next up, what we'll do is divide into 4 groups. In the other room, we'll kind of, yes. Yeah, and I think, I would say where this is going to be kind of selfishly for the good of the whole, where you think you could dedicate time. And so I think, like I said, there's nothing that stops you from participating on multiple work groups. We're gonna try and get the first meeting of each work group set and make sure that it doesn't interfere with the first meeting of any other work group. So again, moving forward from here today, the steering committee will set up some platform where Grace is thinking what's it called? A Google workspace perhaps, because it's not institution specific, where will be kind of the landing space for the network. And then we'll have different work groups with different meeting times, and whether it be Zooms or WebExes, we'll try to facilitate some sort of coordinated approach to scheduling some meetings. But again, you can be on more than one work group, and there will be an opportunity to officially sign up to work groups that comes out via email. So what we're asking you to do in these breakouts today is find a person or two, co-chairs is often nice in case someone's not able to attend at some point, that's willing to chair a work group moving forward, a meeting time, date and time for your first meeting. And I'd ask that you would put that out far enough. What do you guys think? Like at least 3 weeks from now? I'm looking at the steering committee because we want other people to have a chance to sign up first, right? A month, at least a month out. So a meeting time and day, at least a month out, where we'll have a chance to let other people know about your meeting that aren't here. And then if you could kind of summarize what you hope your work group will work on. So you'll have these bullet points, but we don't want to send out these bullet points in an email because that would get a little bit too much. So summarize in a few sentences, what that work group's kind of main goals will be, so that people who are not here this morning are able to say, yeah, that's me. I see myself in that work.
And definitely, I think we should schedule those meetings before Thanksgiving, because otherwise it's going to get it's going to get lost. So,
okay,
which is about a month out. So let's try to think about the next 3 or 4 weeks. I guess you don't want to go any sooner because you want everybody to be able to get there, but open up their calendar.
So we gave you like a 2-day window. No, just kidding. So yes, please try to go at least 3 weeks from now, but not after Thanksgiving. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I
I don't even remember what day it is, but
early to middle November.
thank you. Early to middle November. Or not early.
No,
middle to late
till
November.
late November. Sorry.
Yep. Awesome. Other questions? Yes.
Good thing I wore my tennies today.
I just have a general housekeeping rule, especially for some of us that don't have strong backgrounds. Will either a work group or some entity work on maybe a what I want to say, like a bank of common definitions for things that so we have a common language as our base. Because I think you did something yesterday. It was telling us the difference between like mental health and mental illness. For me, I use them interchangeably because I don't have a mental health or mental illness background. So I'm just wondering if we'll have like a bank of common words or common definitions.
Great question. Thank you for the recommendation. We can do like on the Google Workspace, we can do certainly some background and history of the network, a little bit on the lit review of why we're here, and like not an acronym guide, but a word guide, a little dictionary guide of common terms related to our work. That would be great things on the Google Workspace.
I would even go further and suggest that every work group identify missing information and context that they still need to be able to kind of work productively. And I think collecting it all together would probably be a good idea.
That's an awesome idea. So as you meet with your work group, what do you need from the steering committee or the group as a whole to move forward in your work? So things you need on the Google Workspace, things you need more information on.
Questions, comments?
When we break into the other room, maybe we go like clockwise from the back corner. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in the other room. So that's professional development and training, data evaluation and common measures, research, and program development in a clock. And I'll write the things that we're asking of those working groups to put together. I'll write that on the board, and maybe can they add to the Padlet?
For each group, just to orient, so we're all using the Padlet similarly, you'll see that there's a column for each group, and then each column kind of has the same things, but it also has the bullet points. So for your first meeting, just add it to this card, and then show us your leader. Just add it down here, maybe with an email. Two leaders. I'll add an S there. And yeah, just add your emails too. That way I can just pull the data off this Padlet into a CSV file and email faster.
I'd also just ask Grace if you don't mind adding the little tab of like what additional information we need or what further, what each group feels like they need assistance with as far as vocabulary or like any kind of contextual information that would help them do their work. That'd be a good place to put that.
Yes.
But I just wanted to repeat what Grace said because she didn't have a microphone. She's going to be at the research group if you're having trouble finding it and you're wanting to sit with her. And then I'll be at the measures group. For anyone that knows me, that's kind of goes without saying. So if you're having trouble finding group 2, I'll be there. That was all I wanted to add.
Yes, and yeah, so I also have, this is just for notes. So the first note is aim for a meeting mid to late November. And then under the needs, you can create a new list of, or a new need, but like for list of common terms, if you're like, we should definitely put this term on there, just add it to that card. And then we can translate this for you. Or if you have someone who wants to translate it right there or has a good definition. So take advantage of the Padlet, add stuff. Please don't delete stuff. I'd rather add stuff than delete stuff. All right.
There's a question in the back end. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
My question is about yesterday's keynote with the proposal. I thought I heard him say the deadline is January. Is that annual, and are we aiming collectively to have a submission in a couple months?
Good question. So we do have a WRMHNN in the works. That's something that the meeting planning committee got the ball rolling on. So the deadline is annual. Every January it's due, same times. And then, so kind of the goal would be a year from now submitting that multi-state. Because yeah, I've tried to write, we've all gotten that grant email and it's in 45 days. That's not good for mental health. Oh, yes. And we will talk more about funding at the funding breakout. So we'll go over how kind of you get money from the multi-state, even it's a little weird. And then I think we have it, Mandy chatted. Yep, we have a draft submitted for the network and we can edit it as we go. So we already have that skeleton, but in the funding part, we'll go through some of the regional resources we have, like NBRE and RAIN, as well as the multi-state, and even some private foundations and NIH and NIFA. Any other questions? Are we all like ready to like form our groups? All right, let's form these groups.
One more thing, feel free to add other needs under the needs category too. So other needs are also welcome. You can create a new plus.